The Sandstorm trial of Kepler, 99 had broken the best survival specialists in the coalition for nearly 4 centuries. Crimson winds scoured the planet's equatorial desert with surgical cruelty, carrying sand fine enough to infiltrate sealed armor and abrasive enough to flay exposed skin to bone. Temperatures swung violently, boiling flesh by day and freezing marrow by night. 48 hours remained the longest verified survival time. No one had ever reached extraction. From the observation gallery, head examiner Korthrex of the Valuran watched the planet churn below. His faceted eyes glimmered with anticipation rather than concern. "The human will not last," he said flatly. "Their species has endurance, yes, but this test does not reward endurance. It punishes it." Beside him, several alien officials murmured agreement. Humanity was still an anomaly within the coalition, new, loud, aggressive, and stubbornly reliant on primitive survival methods. Many believed their recent successes were statistical luck rather than capability. On the surface, Lieutenant Aaron Hale of the Terran Expeditionary Corps stood alone at the designated drop zone. His issued pack rested at his feet: rations, a thermal sheet, a water recycler, and a standard utility blade. No shelter. No beacon. No communication device. The trial was simple. Survive 96 hours. Reach the extraction point alive. Aaron surveyed the desert in silence. Endless crimson dunes stretched toward the horizon, interrupted by towering native flora, columnar plants thicker than starship hull supports, their ribbed exteriors studded with thorn-like protrusions. The briefing data had classified them as non-hostile vegetation, high water content, structurally dense. The first storm arrived sooner than expected. 6 hours after insertion, the sky darkened from amber to blood red. Winds screamed across the desert with enough force to knock him off his feet. Sand cut into exposed skin like ground glass. Visibility vanished completely. Most candidates would deploy the thermal sheet and attempt to endure the storm head-on. That strategy had killed every one of them. Aaron did not reach for the blanket. Instead, he looked at the nearest towering plant, watching the way its thick body absorbed the wind without bending. The sandstorm howled louder. Aaron drew his blade and stepped forward. If the desert wanted to tear him apart, he decided, then he would step inside it instead. High above, sensors struggled to maintain a lock on his position as interference intensified. Heat signatures blurred. Motion tracking faltered. To the observers, the human appeared increasingly insignificant against the planetary violence. Korthrex leaned back, confident the trial would soon add another failure to its long history. None of them noticed the human was smiling beneath his visor. The storm intensified, and history prepared to be quietly, completely, and embarrassingly rewritten by humanity. The sandstorm reached full intensity within minutes, transforming the desert into a living weapon. Winds screamed at speeds that shattered sensor drones and buried armored vehicles beneath shifting dunes. From orbit, Kepler 99 looked less like a planet and more like an open wound, its surface stripped raw by constant violence. Inside the observation chamber, alarms flared as tracking systems began to fail. Signal degradation detected, an analyst reported. Visual confirmation lost. Head examiner Korthrex clicked his mandibles in irritation. Expected. The human will trigger extraction within the hour or expire shortly thereafter. But Lieutenant Aaron Hale had no intention of doing either. He worked quickly, carving into the massive plant's thick outer shell. The fibrous material resisted his blade at first, but once breached, it yielded in layers, dense, spongy, and cool to the touch. Sand slid harmlessly across the plant's surface, unable to penetrate its living armor. Aaron widened the opening just enough to squeeze inside. The interior surprised him. A network of natural chambers ran vertically through the plant, reinforced by tough internal fibers that distributed stress evenly. The temperature dropped immediately. The roar of the storm dulled to a distant howl. Aaron sealed the entrance behind him with layers of cut plant material and his thermal sheet, creating a crude but effective barrier. Sand piled harmlessly outside. Inside, the air was still. Hours passed. Above the storm, confusion spread through the observation deck. Heat signature lost entirely, another analyst said. No movement detected. Korthrex frowned. Confirm fatality. We cannot, the analyst replied. Environmental interference is too severe. The head examiner folded his arms. Then the human is dead. But Aaron Hale was alive, and improving his shelter. Using his blade, he expanded the inner chamber, careful not to compromise the plant's structural integrity. He pierced one internal reservoir and nearly laughed with relief as water flowed freely. It tasted bitter and alkaline, but his recycler rendered it drinkable. He rationed his supplies, insulated the chamber with plant fibers, and waited. The storm raged for nearly 2 days. When it finally weakened, coalition sensors re-established partial contact with the surface. To the astonishment of everyone watching, a single heat signature flickered back into existence. Alive. Moving. He reappeared, someone whispered. Korthrex leaned forward, disbelief cracking his composed exterior. Impossible. No one survives exposure that long. Drone footage finally stabilized, revealing the truth. The human emerged briefly from the side of the massive plant, scanned the stars, adjusted his position, and calmly returned inside. Silence filled the chamber. He didn't endure the storm, an instructor murmured. He avoided it. For the first time in 400 years, the Sandstorm trial had not claimed its victim. It had merely been outthought. And as the human vanished once more into the living fortress he had carved, the galaxy began to realize endurance was not humanity's greatest weapon. Adaptation was. Days passed. Then more. The Sandstorm trial clocks continued running long after they should have stopped. 48 hours became 72. 72 became 100. Each milestone shattered a record no one believed could be broken. Inside the observation chamber, disbelief replaced mockery. 7th day confirmed, an analyst reported quietly. Vital signs stable. Nutrient consumption minimal. Korthrex stood rigid, his confidence unraveling piece by piece. No candidate has survived 7 days. Not Valuran. Not Krenth. Not synthetic constructs. Below, Aaron Hale emerged from his shelter during a lull between storms. He stretched beneath the dim orange sky, shielding his eyes as the sun dipped toward the horizon. His beard had grown unevenly. His uniform was dust-stained. But his movements were steady, controlled, efficient. He checked his bearings using the stars, adjusted the internal markers he had carved into the plant's interior, and returned inside without urgency. He's living there, one of the instructors whispered. Not hiding. Living. The realization unsettled the room more than any violent confrontation ever had. This was not survival through endurance or aggression. It was coexistence. Drone footage revealed more. Aaron had expanded the interior chambers carefully, maintaining structural integrity while increasing insulation. He had mapped internal water reservoirs and established a rotation system to prevent collapse. He used storm cycles to regulate temperature, opening vents only when pressure differentials allowed safe airflow. By the 10th day, his rations were nearly gone. By the 15th, completely exhausted. Yet Aaron remained. On the 19th day, he emerged one final time, activated his extraction implant, and waited calmly beside the plant. When the retrieval shuttle descended, silence gripped the observation deck. Medical scans confirmed the impossible. Dehydration levels within acceptable margins. No organ damage. Minor radiation exposure. Moderate sunburn. That's all, an examiner asked incredulously. That's all, the medic replied. In the recovery bay, Korthrex confronted the human directly. You survived 19 days, he said. Why did you not extract earlier? Aaron shrugged, the motion casual, almost apologetic. Didn't see a reason to. The head examiner stared. You lived inside a hostile organism. Aaron smiled faintly. It wasn't hostile. Just, big. You violated every survival doctrine we teach. Respectfully, Aaron replied, your doctrine assumes the environment is the enemy. Silence stretched. My grandfather taught me desert survival back home, Aaron continued. Rule 1, if nature built something that lasts, learn from it. Korthrex looked away. The Sandstorm trial had not been beaten by superior technology, physiology, or strength. It had been beaten by a human who chose to move in instead of fight back. The galaxy did not yet understand what that meant. But it would. The Sandstorm trial was quietly suspended within a single cycle. Officially, it was for procedural review. Unofficially, the Academy did not know how to account for a human who had turned a death sentence into housing. Across the coalition, footage of Lieutenant Aaron Hale entering and exiting the massive plant spread rapidly. Analysts replayed it frame by frame, searching for hidden technology, biological enhancement, or rule violations. They found none. Only patience, planning, and a refusal to accept the premise of the test. The Academy Council convened in emergency session. Species that had dominated survival doctrine for millennia now argued in uncertain tones. If a human could survive 19 days with minimal equipment, what else had they misunderstood? Head Examiner Korthrex delivered the final report himself. Human survival methodology demonstrates extreme adaptability, he stated. They do not resist hostile environments. They integrate with them. A new classification was added to the archives that day. Humans, environmental assimilators. The Sandstorm trial resumed months later with revised parameters. Native flora usage was explicitly prohibited. Shelter construction was restricted. Environmental interaction limits were imposed. Despite these changes, no candidate ever surpassed 40 hours again. It did not matter. The lesson had already escaped containment. Aaron Hale graduated with highest honors and declined multiple offers to remain at the Academy. Instead, he accepted a position training coalition explorers bound for frontier worlds. His first lecture was always the same. The universe doesn't care how advanced you are, he told them. It only cares whether you adapt faster than it tries to kill you. On Kepler 99, the massive plant remained standing long after the trial ended. A small, deliberate opening marked its side, weathered smooth by time and sand. Pilots began using it as a navigation landmark. Cadets whispered about it with a mix of reverence and disbelief. They called it the human shelter. Korthrex visited the site once before his retirement. He stood in the storm shadow of the plant and placed a clawed hand against its surface. For the first time in his long career, he understood the flaw in coalition thinking.